we will now bind the rig we have built to our female polygon mesh. And for the ones that don't really know what binding means, it's a really simple term. It describes the process of attaching every single vertex of this mesh to a certain part of the skeleton. So it sounds really difficult, but it's really simple. So let's simply hit our binding tab, and what you want to do here is simply drop the mesh inside, and that's all. As a result, you will be able to deform the mesh with these controls. Now, do bear in mind that you won't be able to do so. So let me just demonstrate that. You see the axis is grayed out. You cannot do anything unless you are in animate mode. So once you enable this tab, now you can freely move and observe the result. Once that is done, we will get initial weights. So now it's really the time to check them and correct them if necessary. And for most part, they will probably be really good, but they often require tweaking in problematic areas such as hips or shoulders mainly. So now it's time really to test how good or bad those deformations are. For this purpose, I will just filter out joints to get rid of them in the viewport. They are really distracting and clutter the view. Now, once you're in Animate tab, you can see these three little buttons, and we will describe them later, but also what is important, you will receive this new tab called Controls, which is a tab that will contain parameters specific for the selected control. So now, as you can see, I have control for each and every individual finger, so I can test the deformations. This is a solid job, so you'll naturally have to take a little bit of time to test this guy. So let's say that this is pretty good. So our weighting, that is a result of a binding process, did a really good job. So let's see about rotating this guy maybe, and that's actually quite good. How about this? So probably from experience I can tell you that shoulders and hips are the areas that will give you most of the trouble. So let me just see, and yes, just as I expected. For example, you notice this area here, this is simply wrong, and I'll just turn off hyper nerves. So we have a non-smoothed version of this, and we will fix these weights a little bit before we test other things. Now, notice that now, dependent on what I have selected, the controls change. So this is a dynamic change that we talked about in this character object. So if you, for example, don't want to select these controllers in the viewport, you can select them here also. So maybe you want to select the head, and let's try how. Well, deformations are here, and that is pretty solid. And let's try this hip control, and it's generally really good. The only area that is giving me the trouble is this area here. So now, since I pretty much manipulated this rig, I really want to reset it, and I will reset it by hitting this reset pose button. Now, this reset pose is the initial pose before you hit that binding, before you dropped your mesh into this binding slot. So if you hit reset pose, it will happily reset to default values. Now, you may want to change this, and for example, this would be maybe your default pose, and if you want so, you can simply update that pose. Let me just show you that. So if you do an update now, and maybe change this controller and select this one, and something like this, if I do a reset pose, it will update to that new stored pose. So if you feel you maybe made a mistake, you can always shift click on this guy, and it will still reset to original binding pose. Let's update that. So this is our original pose, and I hope I haven't lost anyone at this particular moment. We can, for example, test maybe some controls that are specific for the foot, and let's hit the controls tab and something like this. So it works really well, so I don't think we have to change anything here except fixing the weights a little bit around here. I'm pretty sure that ones among you that watched Volume 3 and Project 2 are well acquainted with correctional shapes and weight painting techniques, which I really showed in detail, and here we'll do just minimal corrections so we can proceed with our training now. Let me select first the area that I think it is a little bit problematic, so let's try maybe something like this, and I will fill this selection, and now I have to access the actual joints from this rig, and let me show you how to do that. And the process is really simple, and it's the same as in standard rigging. So simply shift double click this guy to get the weights manager. Alternatively, you can use this weight tag, and also if you just double click this guy, you will get a weight tool, which is a tool for manually painting weights, which I really don't prefer to do, only in specific situations. For fine tuning, generally what I suggest and what I find a really good technique is to use this weights manager. Now, if you're asking yourselves, where are these joints located here in the object manager, that is really simple. They're packed into this character object. So let me show you that you can change how this character object is perceived in object manager. So here under display, under managers, it's a little bit hidden. You will simply instruct object manager what to show here. Currently it's showing our components, and in this drop-down menu we have a lot of things, but let me show you this full hierarchy, which will show absolutely everything, and this will be a little bit of a surprise. So let's do it like this, and notice how many elements there are here. This is a complete rig with all the constraints, espresso, and this component tags and various tags, and we will talk about this component tag a little bit later, because it's really somewhat technical area of Sina for this. So if you feel you need that view where you have to see everything in your object manager, then you have that option. And just in case you were wondering, this component tag, let's just enable it. It looks pretty simple in this state, but trust me, it's far more complicated than this, and it's dependent on what is set here. But let's leave that for now unattended. Let's switch back to components so we get these nice, logical, reasonable parts in the object manager. Now let's do some basic weight painting. So I'm shift clicking this guy, and actually let me select first the legs area, because I want to clear out some things, and this is just my basic workflow. So I'll select this loop, and actually this loop here, like this, and I will select the corresponding loop on the other side, and let me fill first this selection, and I will invert it to select only the legs. Now what I'm doing here is simply a stage of weight painting called blocking. If you are wondering how those weights are distributed, you can go here under display and simply state draw all joints. This will draw all the weights. Now this is a little bit distracting because it's difficult to identify which joint is weighting which point, so I generally turn this off and work just with what is selected. Now here under joints, I will select this spine, and this will select all the joints here. So every single of these guys will be selected, And what I want to say now is here under options is 0. So 0 weights from spine joints on the legs. So absolutely 0 on selected only. This means selected only, where apply all would mean apply to complete mesh. So let's hit apply and notice that we got rid of some excessive weighting here because there is simply no logic into these spine joints affecting the legs. Now let's expand this logical concept a little bit further. So in my mind, joints from one side of the mesh shouldn't influence the points on the other side of the mesh. So left side should control the left side and right side should control the right side. That is really logical. So let me now select the loop like this, and I will just deselect this guy because it's really difficult to see what is going on. And notice how solid topology will make this a little bit easier. So let's fill the right side of the mesh and we will select everything that has this L prefix to it because we want to get rid of all the joint weights from left sided joint chains for this right part of the mesh. I really hope that makes sense. So by selecting left arm and left leg, and by hitting absolutely 0 weights from these joints on the left side on the right side of the mesh. So let's hit apply. And of course, I can invert the selection. And now I want to do just the opposite. So no right side joint weights should affect this left side of the mesh. So once again, absolutely 0 weights from the right side. So hit apply and you'll immediately notice a change here because we had some joints from the right side influencing this left leg, which is really a logical contradiction. Let's now see if we can resolve some of the problematic areas here, and let me start by just this area here. So let's try something like this, and I'll select the area in between by fill selection, and actually let me now find this hip joint. So if you will be hovering, you can find the joint name. So look just below my cursor. The last on the list is a joint named right underscore hip underscore internal. Okay, so let's find it here. So this guy, and I want to select the guy on the left side also. So that would be left underscore hip underscore internal. So now I want to just smooth these joints out a little bit into this selected area. So let's see how that will work. And I think this is better already. So let's maybe make another pose that will show us if the weights are off. And let's see, how about this? So here in this area here, we have some problems. Let me see on the other side. And we could do even repairs for that area. So let me just briefly close this guy. I will open it once again, and in our faces mode, I will activate the live selection, deselect all this, and do some manual selection around here, maybe even this one, and let's go here, see if we have to select anything more, and maybe I will select this area here also, because I'm really talking from experience here, nothing fancy. Maybe even let's try with this first, so we will see if that will be good enough. So once again, shift clicking this guy, and let's see how they are weighted here. So for example, here you see this point is weighted roughly all to this main pelvis joint. So let me just try find this left hip guy. Let's try just a little bit of smoothing like this, so it will be smoothed. Let's try even more, just a little bit like this, and it's already much better in terms of deformation. So always simply adjust weights, paint them, and this area here is a little bit problematic, and I'm tempted to create a correctional shape for this, but let's try maybe selecting this area like this. So we are once again in the edge mode, and just select this loop like this, and let's try to fix this a little bit. So I'm filling the selection, and let's shift click this guy to access our weights manager, and let's just try with this left hip guy and this right hip guy. Let's just smooth this a little bit. So apply, and maybe I could even expand this selection and smooth once again, maybe expand a little bit more, apply, maybe once more, and let's see how that looks with hypernerves on, and this is pretty decent, but I'll take some time off the recording just to clean up these weights just a little bit, because I really don't want you to look at me while I'm doing those weights, because that is really a tedious process and it would eat a solid amount of time, and I really want to show you maximum amount for your money. So let's say now that this is solid enough. So let me just fix the weights up a little bit, and we will be right back to explore this area here, because I'm pretty sure that you notice this add walk guy, and it is very tempting to show you this right now, but I'm pretty sure that we want to cover C motion first on some basic examples, because this add walk button will generate automatic walk cycle for this C motion guy, and this C motion guy is a really large area, and I think we need to cover this from ground up to be able to understand what happens after we hit this add walk guy. So I'll just fix these weights a bit and maybe repose the hands to be along the body, and we will continue diving into C motion in our next lesson.